All right, guys, so we got some big news coming out of the MSNBC world that I had to share with you here. So a few days back now, we learned that MSNBC is canceling Joy Ann Reid's show. Now, there was a time in the past where I would have probably celebrated this, because I remember during the trench warfare of the Democratic primary in 2016, she was very, very harsh on my boy Bernie. She very famously brought on a body language expert to try to say that Bernie was lying about something that he was telling the truth about. She also had that moment where she was in hot water where there were these old homophobic blogs that came out about her, and she basically lied about those in reaction to it. And just like almost everybody on MSNBC, the deck was stacked against Bernie, and they were all very pro-Hillary at the time, and it just, it was just a shame, right? Having said that, a lot of time has passed since then, and there's been some major developments in global politics. One of them, of course, being the genocide in Gaza. Israel doing an outright genocide. And to my surprise, Joy Ann Reid has been not one of the best voices on this issue. In mainstream media, literally, objectively, empirically, the best voice on this issue. She brought it up consistently. She discussed it in moral terms. She didn't let the horse race politics and her preferred candidates, she didn't let that cloud her judgment about the reality of the situation on the ground and what was happening. And she did good reporting, good commentary on that issue. So it is no longer 2016 or 2017, y'all. It's not. It's also no longer 2020, right? And the political media landscape has also shifted massively. What are we seeing? The right-wing outlets are in an insane asylum. You have Fox News, One American News Network, Newsmax, Daily Wire, which is online. You have all these different outlets. They view their role as pro-Trump, pro-Republican propagandists. That's how they view their role. And then you have what's supposed to be the liberal outlets, and let's call it what it is. Virtually all of them are both sides frauds. They're false equivalents, humpers, both sidesers. That's what they are. And the political media landscape cannot survive with a fascist coup takeover from Trump and Elon and propagandistic right-wing media and then a supposed liberal media, which is enlightened centrist, always trying to find the middle ground, always trying to hear out Republicans and Democrats. To not have any voice unapologetically telling people the truth is unacceptable, right? So as I told you guys, I was, in the first days of the second Trump administration, I was like, man, I had a lot of criticism of the resistance the first time around, but at least there was a resistance. Now it seems like there's no resistance, right? And then what have we seen since then? At the very least, the cable news anchors who were simply anti-Trump, they're axing all of them. Jim Acosta was a big anti-Trump guy. Again, I have issues with him. I don't agree with him on everything. But now CNN is axing one of the only anti-Trump hosts, right? MSNBC. Somehow Morning Joe gets 57 hours on air per day when they go and eat sushi with Trump at Mar-a-Lago after calling him Hitler. All of a sudden, we got to wipe the slate clean. So here's Joy Ann Reid. One thing you can rely on her for, being consistently anti-Trump. Now, they're axing her. So, why? Well, look. First, let me just point this out. It's kind of curious how many examples there have been of black female hosts that MSNBC has gotten rid of, right? Melissa Harris Perry, Tamron Hall, I believe it is, Joy Ann Reid. There's been a number of black female hosts that they seem to let go of pretty quickly. So that's one point I just wanted to throw out there. But the more important thing is this. As I said, she was a leading voice on the issue of Palestinians. So here's just one example of one segment.
Early Saturday, an Israeli airstrike hit a school serving as a shelter in Gaza, killing at least 100 people and wounding nearly 50 others, according to Palestinian health authorities. On the same day as the strike, Vice President Kamala Harris condemned the loss of civilian life.
Yet again, there are far too many civilians who have been killed. I mean, Israel has a right to go after the terrorists that are Hamas. But as I have said many, many times, they also have, I believe, an important responsibility to avoid civilian casualties.
Uncommitted and anti-war voters see a reset with Harris on Israel and Gaza. Her language is different, capable of moving the needle and gaining favor with some of the voters who rejected President Biden over his stance on the region. But language is not enough. This was a school serving as a shelter for refugees of war, attacked during morning prayers. Witnesses said children, women, and old people were inside sleeping, and that the school was hit without an evacuation warning from the IDF. President Biden has faced months of public pressure to cut off the supply of weapons to Israel amid its war on Gaza, which has killed about 40,000 people since October. It's why the squad, all elected officials of color, are demanding a ceasefire, despite being targeted for removal from office by staunch supporters of the Netanyahu government and the ongoing bombardment of Gaza. The world is on edge right now, and rightly so. The U.S. is sending more troops to the Middle East to bolster defenses as Israel braces for an attack by Iran. So far, Vice President Harris has shown herself to be better positioned than President Biden to bring the party together on this issue. But we have to remember, Harris is still the vice president serving in the Biden administration. So her policy, should it differ from Biden's, isn't anything that she can implement now. Though it's absolutely fair for people to ask, why are we giving bombs to Israel? And would she keep that policy in place as president? These questions will surely be visible during the Democratic National Convention next week. And how the party answers could impact the election, not to mention the lives of so many Palestinians who have suffered for much too long. For God's sake, this needs to end.
The single best voice on this issue in mainstream media fired. So Adam Johnson said, this was October 17th, 2024. In hours of research/watching MSNBC CNN's overall very bad Gaza coverage, by far the best anchor on the topic was Joy-Ann Reid. Ahmed was a close second, but Reid was the most consistent, thorough, and most likely to speak in moral terms. Make of that what you wish. And then he, of course, updated this when the news dropped. Not totally sure why Joy-Ann Reid was fired, but I can attest, having spent countless hours surveying MSNBC's Gaza coverage, she was definitely the best cable anchor on the subject of Palestine, as others have pointed out. A very low bar, obviously, but one she cleared nonetheless. Now, this story gets deeper. You ready? So, Joy-Ann Reid was let go, and I'm giving you the real reason, the truth as to why she was let go. It was only a day later, I believe, we learned this. The Guardian reports, MSNBC canceling Ahmed's show amid network reshuffling. Adam Johnson points out, and he literally did a quantitative analysis on this, who was the best on the issue of Gaza. Ready? Ahmed was the second best on his list, his quantitative list. The number one best host on the issue of Gaza, and the number two best host on the issue of Gaza. In all of cable news, gone. And again, I want to reiterate, what's the other thing you can rely on Joy-Ann Reid for and Ahmed for? Being anti-Trump. This is authoritarianism. MSNBC sees all of the lawsuits that Trump is waging on all of these news outlets. They see the CBS lawsuit. They see the Simon & Schuster lawsuit. They see the 60 Minutes lawsuit. I guess that's CBS lawsuit. They see the other ones. They see the Des Moines Register with Ann Selzer. And then they see Facebook, many other outlets, Amazon, basically paying bribes to the Trump family. And what's happening here is they're playing a game. This is a bribery game. This is an insider game. Hey, here, I'll settle out of court and give you some money, but, you know, hey, let my merger go through. Make sure I get my tax cuts. Don't fuck with our business too much, right? This is the idea. Hey, we'll moderate coverage. Washington Post did this. LA Times did this. We'll moderate our coverage. We're cool, right? We're cool. Hey, here's $10 million. And now, the few voices of, again, I just want to be clear, standard resistance, liberalism, run-of-the-mill, anti-Trump stuff, and being decent on Gaza, gone. They are destroying themselves. They've already been struggling, but they are destroying themselves. What are you going to do? Give Morning Joe another 17 hours? Is that what you're going to do? The show that lost 60% of their viewers because they bent the knee to Trump? Is that what you're going to do? Man. Now, the update on the Ahmed thing is that it's allegedly, I don't know the truth about this yet, but some people are saying that he actually wasn't fired. He's being reshuffled in the sense that he's going from a show that has his name on it to a show that doesn't have his name on it. That's more of like a panel thing. And it's like basically a demotion is what they're saying. But again, we saw this script play out with Mehdi Hassan. He was also the best on the issue of Gaza, and he eventually left. Right? So now you're looking at a situation where there's no, we're going to hold Trump accountable mindset, and there's also no tell the truth on Gaza and Israel mindset. Nowhere to be found. Well, look, what I'll say is this. Now you have other outlets to reckon with, right? And I think even they're beginning to realize that. MSNBC has been so holier than thou when it comes to looking at new media, online media, and they always felt like, who the fuck are these people? It's kind of crazy. Like, the right-wingers will literally make stars of their online media people and then bring them into the fold. On the Democratic and liberal and leftist side, they look at us with disdain, right? And at the same time, we look at many of them with disdain. The politicians who are corrupt and careerist and they don't actually believe in this stuff, we look at them the same way. But they have had this holier-than-thou attitude the entire time, right? And then now, look, we're getting there in the sense that we're now competing with these people. You know, if you compare the numbers of even I guess not a primetime show because Maddow's back and she gets pretty decent numbers, but basically any other show, compare the key demographic numbers to an online show like this, right? I mean, literally the Midas Touch Network just became number one and dethroned Joe Rogan in the podcast sphere. Number one. Their whole bread and butter is we're going to go after Trump because he's a fucking liar and a scumbag and an imperialist and an oligarch. And their whole thing is that number one in the podcast sphere. And at the same time, they're like, let's get rid of all the anti-Trump hosts and the hosts who happen to be good on the issue of Gaza, one of the most important issues, if not the most important issue of our time. So, good luck to you. I don't mean that. I wish you no luck at all. But somehow, they're taking a business model that was already failing, and they're going in a worse direction. So, nothing at all to celebrate here. Just the further destruction of what remains of mainstream media, in the sense that even the few breaths of fresh air are now being shoved aside, disrespected, demoted, etc. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.